special thanks to Channels TV. I didn't even know until this election that you can watch Channels TV as if you're in Nigeria. This is all the way in Toronto, Canada. I'm still watching Channels TV, and the reception, it was very clear. The voice, everything was beautiful. Channels TV, take this one. Congrats to the president. Let's make Nigeria work.
Welcome back to the verdict. Let me head to Professor Tahir Maman in Abuja. Well, concerning party funding and the role citizens should have in terms of in political parties, would you subscribe to, or what model would you advise we adopt such that people can say, look, yes, we really do own and belong to this party, concerning party funding now?
Well, the way the parties have emerged in Nigeria, it's like a one-man business, or just a group of 2-3 people coming together and floating it as a kind of investment. And they now fan out to look for membership. It's okay for people to conceive the idea of having a party, but when you have that, where it now depends on its own resources to bankroll the logistics and the growth of the party, certainly they will take charge of everything about the party and who will be candidate for anything. And that is the beginning of getting wrong people for leadership. Now, the president did something in these elections which seems to be going unnoticed, which is his decision not to provide money, official money, or even his own money, for his campaign. And directed that people, in fact, actually started from 2015 when people were now putting together money to support his candidature. And this time around, he made it official that there will be no government money. People should go out and raise funds. And from what we heard from the grapevine, a lot of the initial support groups that thought there was going to be a manna from heaven, from government, simply fizzled out. And others, of course, went around to generate money. Now, this is the way to, give a populist base to a political structure. And we know by law, all the parties, if you read the manifesto the regulations governing every political party, there's supposed to be a membership fee payable by every member. Yes, when you even go to register, people pay. But that is the end of where the relationship, financial relationship between the parties and their members. For subsequent elections, people pay heavily. Aspirants pay heavily, which shouldn't be the case. So it should be the other way around, that members now subscribe and pay for the parties. If they do, they would insist on determining who will be leaders of the parties and who will be their candidates at the elections. And of course, they will only be able to do that if they believe in the ideas of that party. Because as Prof mentioned earlier on, Buhari's case is one instance in this country which is in a class of its own. And clearly, people have said there's no difference between PDP and APC. There's nothing further from the truth. in that, because yes, on paper and in terms of some of the people within those parties, they appear to be the same, doing the same things, but the single most important factor in APC is the candidate, the president himself, who I may say is 70% of APC.
Okay.
Okay, and this is somebody who believes in service to the community.
All right, but
serving the people of Nigeria.
Let me bring it back.
That's why he's been able to reach himself, and that's why he has endeared himself.
All right. Let me ask you, Professor Lorode, one of the issues that some politicians raised in terms of when we're looking at factors to work against or to tackle such that we don't have electoral violence, they think that when party agents don't sign result sheets, and the law still says whether he signed it or not, it doesn't invalidate the results. They think that that's a problem, because if that is not the case, then anybody can go ahead and perpetrate violence, as long as, look, it's the only tribunal that can change that. What do we do about that?
That is the signing
of result sheets by party agents.
Well, it's not compulsory, and it shouldn't be compulsory, because without party agent, what is important is to make sure you follow the entire electoral process, its credibility. What is the thinking of the average person, an average elector, regardless of...
Isn't having party agents part of the checks and balance?
Of course, you can choose not to have party agents. It's your choice.
But that's at your risk.
Yeah, of course. So that's why it is not really, it may be a necessary condition, but it's not sufficient for an election to be regarded as being credible. Otherwise, people would take, even a transparent, credible, fair and free election, they would take the process to ransom. If you say if you don't sign, then it's not going to certify as having been produced by... I want to comment on the what Prof. Mohammed said from Abuja. You will recall when President Buhari was in Imo State to campaign, and this is very instructive for me. And he re-echoed and retraced the same point when he was in Ogun State. He said, vote for candidate of your choice.
Isn't that because the party were at loggerheads?
In disarray, yes. And he was trying to play a good godfather role. He was trying to play an impartial role, not to be seen to be leaning in the direction of a faction or a group of people within the party. And that's the way people who are confident should go.
Okay, just to speak to the image we see on the screen, that's the International Conference Center where the President is expected to pick up the certificate of return, which we'll go to as soon as we have them all set. But why did they need to go to International Conference Center? Why not the INEC office in Abuja?
Or is it because it's international?
No, why? Oh, well, it's because of the crowd. I'm not sure INEC has that kind of facility that will contain the crowd that will come. You have seen the crowd trooping in. There will be more that will come. An international center is not far from the... Yes. Yes.
Well, there's something interesting that also came up in our minds here. Most of the recs and scopes are academics. Any particular reason? And then, of course, they had to travel from...
Most of the recs are returning officers.
Yes.
Yeah, most of the returning. That has been the tradition since Jega came on board.
Any particular reason?
No, it's just to... You see, I don't see any university scholar, I mean, that is what they sought, wanting to mess up.
Why not accountants? Because
they could be accountants, they could recruit from many... I think what Jega did were then, from 2011, that's the constituency that it belongs to. It was formerly the chair of ASU, and he knows the terrain very well. He knows who is who in academics, largely speaking. And he depended on the recommendation. It's not that INEC will go to a university and recruit returning officers. INEC depends on the recommendation of the university, of the vice chancellors of universities.
INEC can also reach out to ICANN and give us professionals, because if they mess their name up...
You can even reach out. So if they mess him up, it's going to be a challenge. But institutions like ICANN, reputable organizations like MBA, it's not anything. There's nothing to be afraid of in terms of being partisan, because what you're going to do is to just tell us the outcome of the election. Everything has been collated. It's just for you to make a return. It's not anything. But I think what we should be looking at, listening to Professor Mama, is that how do we begin in terms of election funding? The cost is huge. You can collapse. I heard of somebody that collapsed. He was sitting in a cage or somewhere because he didn't make the election. It's huge. It's too much. Look, when you look at the statistics...
That's for candidates now.
For candidates now. So even for parties in town finance, we can have a lot of volunteers. I would be willing, as a university professor, as a teacher, I can spend an hour. If I believe in the party, I believe in the ideology of the party, I can spend an hour with the party or 2 hours over the weekend. Help you to type some things, help you to document things, deliver letters in the neighborhood, and do things for free without asking for cost. We are not sufficiently tapping into our cultural resources, into our cultural assets to drive our electoral process. And I think we need to do more of this.
What we can say, at least we've seen the Minister of Trade and Investment, Okechukwu Enelama, in picture a moment ago. Now, the Inspector General of Police arriving ahead of the President, that you also part of the crowd which you spoke about. So you have a lot of dignitaries arriving at that time as well.
Getting closer to the time the President will...
Okay, well, we're still looking at those pictures as quickly as we can and see that the President comes to receive his certificate. I think we can also make out Hadi Sirika, the Minister for Aviation, also there in that pack. But
wondering if Nigeria will come back on the street.
Coming back to the studio here.
This is good for the consolidation of our democracy. People respect people now have for PVC card. They treasure it as their ATM.
But there's one more step.
It's part of culture and civilization.
Make it full electronic.
Yeah, it will take time. It's the cost implication. Even the purchase of those machines that is used in accreditation. Because elections are not held every day.
What about transmitting the results electronically?
Of course, that can be done. Factor, real time. That can be done so that everybody can. It can even be posted online. People can have it. So it's the ownership of the process. Nobody should be afraid of that. I'm sure in the INEC might be contemplating electronic transfer of results.
Would you also like to see maybe the next elections another body to aid INEC, rather than having INEC be the one to handle everything, including chair the security council, security meeting, interagency security meeting,
interconsultative committee on election security?
The chairman said that, look, we need to have a conversation about election management in this country, because if we don't, we will have this problem
What
again.
I would like to see, apart from the urgent reforms that political parties must undertake, that we can have parties going into the next election very strong and formidable. The reform of INEC itself as an institution. INEC really needs to be reformed. What do I mean? In terms of no, I don't think unbundling would be the word, because you need to take control of the entire process as an election body. But what I want to see more is power decentralization from the headquarters to the state, to resident electoral commissioners at the headquarters of INEC. Let me give you one example. We have INEC has data capturing center in Ogun State. It has in Jigawa. There's nothing that stops those centers from printing of PVC, permanent voters card. There's nothing from reviving and making sure your regional offices are robust, they are working, so that you can deposit even your non-sensitive election materials there 2-3 months before the election, and from there you can distribute.
So you believe
instead of doing everything from Abuja, you can decentralize. You can look at what are involved in any electoral process. Look at those ones that may not really require the chairman being there doing it, or doing it from the headquarters, and let other. You have local government offices all over the 776 local government in the country, 774 local government offices of INEC. Most of the time, they do not really be active. So you can get them to do a number of things, so that state also will be very more active and
that's
more
the next
involved.
point. What do you do about states? Because almost all of them, they win all the elections, almost 100%.
No, that's the State Independent Electoral Commission.
Yeah, well,
of course, you know why? You know why? They are on them. The governors are on them. You can't. Some of them can't even. For states that hold local government elections, you must give kudos to them. Lagos State have done so. Not many states are bold enough to go to the electorate.
But why?
Because they know what they are doing. Look at the fiasco in some of the states, even state under the leadership of governors. Some of them had challenges. That's why they can't trust the people to do any free election at all. So we say that ahead elections, we must congratulate them. It's very rare.
Prof,
since 1999, very few states had held local government elections as at when due. In fact, none of the states had done so as at when due. None of the states.
let me
34 of them had held elections.
Let me twist this a little bit more,
yes.
because the concerns are getting stronger as we head to the governorship elections. But if I may ask you, what is the place of the peace accord that has been signed? Because in 2015, we had pre, during, and post-election violence, even though peace accords were in place. So, does it really matter having peace accords?
Peace accord
or should we jettison it, or is it just a lexicon that politicians use to douse the situations, but when it comes to actuality, it fails?
No. You see, jettisoning the peace accord is like you making elections to be free for all. And there's nobody you can hold responsible. Don't forget, even in this election, that some of the people that could be said to be responsible for killings in the electoral process, the possibility of being prosecuted cannot be said to be remote. And you never know the thinking of the president, what he can do on this, or the government when it comes to power. Secondly, and I think this is more important, when parties go into any election cohesive, the chances, if there are no internal bickerings, the chances of post-election violence will be very, very remote.
Well, we understand that the Vice President has arrived at venue where the President will be picking up his certificate of return. But don't forget, we're watching, we're keeping an eye on that window. So when they are all set, it's supposed to be for 2. So there you go, that's the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, arriving for this event today.
So I would like to suggest that we should keep the peace accord in place for its symbolic gesture. That is to say, you are extracting promises from people that matter, key players in the election, that I commit myself to peace before, during, and after elections.
Do you think the elections reflect the popular expectations?
I would think so. I think it did. The elections did. Of course, there are hiccups here and there, which in most elections, any election, are bound to happen. You recall the Florida case in 2000. You also recall the hacking into the electoral process during the election of Trump in America. I think what is important is really what are the lessons that we can learn from the hiccups that we have seen. It's not that there are they sufficient to discredit the process? And I would say no, they are not sufficient to discredit the process. All over the place, what I've seen, people are jubilating in spite of the fact that they have reservations about some of the features of the election in terms of logistics and other things, which I'm sure as we move into the governorship election, we should have improvement. You see, elections, when there are challenges, what it means is that the truth-seeking nature and the probability feature of the elections are undermined. What do I mean by truth-seeking nature? Elections are supposed to approximate what is my preference. It's preference aggregation. But if elections are marred with violence and people are not able to access the polling arena, or people are bribed with money, there's then the falsification of truth. The truth-seeking nature of elections, therefore, will be undermined. That is why we must, as much as possible, make the election arena, the environment, to be peaceful and not to be corrupted by vote swapping or vote buying.
Which is why many people contend that the responsibilities of INEC in this process is too much. Before you register and monitor political parties, and so many other things of the main functions of INEC. That's why don't
forget, those functions are scattered. They are not as if they have to be done on the day of election or 2 weeks to the election. These are functions that have to be done along the line. I think what we need to do more, how do we secure the entire electoral process? For example,
it's not about unbundling INEC.
No, I don't think it's not going to. I think it may create more problems. What do you mean by unbundling? Which function do you want to take over from INEC, apart from prosecution of election offenders, which another body can be saddled with? But my fear is that creating bureaucracy in response to challenges does not really automatically means effective response to those challenges. You know, you can have a subcommittee or a subsection within INEC whose I think the prosecution is more funding. Funding.